All right. Welcome, everybody. Friday night. I feel like I do the same thing every single
Like
week.
this?
It's
Or
always
like
like,
this?
welcome. Or what up? How you doing?
Like
I
do the
don't know
Macarena next.
I don't know what to do with these. Like, how do you know how to do the Macarena, man?
You okay? Everybody knows how to do the Macarena.
Back in the day, I used to. When I was a camp counselor, I was waiting for that. When I was a camp counselor, for some odd reason, we had to learn how to do it. When I was 15, it was weird times in my life. I'll tell you that. But
Right. And then you're like, here, kids, dab this.
yeah. But anyway, everybody, Friday night, as usual. Thank you for joining us. This is the
Art and Stuff show. I'm Sean Ahrendt. I normally have a bunch of bullshit to say. Can't find it in my notes, but that's Joe. Here's his bullshit.
I'm right here.
I'm
Point the
trying to
other
figure it
direction. Point the other direction. Yeah. I'm the very attractive, very sexy, very distinguished, always narcissistic but never vain, staunch defender of Rob Liefeld, and a lover of all things 90s. Joseph Michael Sonntag, or Joe M. Sonntag if you prefer, or as the Pope likes to call me, JMS. Welcome to the show, everybody, and I hope everyone's having a great, great Friday night start to your weekend. And I think we have a very, very talented artist, fun guest that we're going to talk to. We're going to cover a veteran of the convention scenes. I think we're going to have a really interesting conversation about artistic styles and all that. So without further ado, we're going to bring on our guest tonight, the Art and Stuff Show, episode 21, Mr.
Give him
Ken
a
Hunt.
drink.
Yeah. How you doing, Ken? Welcome to the
Hey,
show.
Ken,
Hanging in there.
thanks for
Hanging in
coming
there.
on. All right.
Yeah, thank you
Oh,
for
no, my
thank you for
pleasure.
being
Glad
here.
to be on here.
And as always, anybody, if you have questions in the chat, feel free to join and be a part of the show. Sometimes your questions spark a conversation. We like to talk about art, especially young artists out there love to ask questions about technique and all that kind of stuff. So it's always good when we have artists on that we can help anybody out the best way we can. So
Oh, yeah. Always kind of questions are welcome. Bring them on.
absolutely.
So our first question from our behalf is, what's your origin? What got you
My
into
origin?
drawing? What got you into comics? ALA, what's
Well,
up?
What up,
well,
LA?
actually, when I started, I wasn't interested in comics at all when I started drawing. I was like 5 or 6 years old, and I was infatuated with Speed Racer at the time. And I didn't really
Speed
care
Racer.
about the story or anything. I just loved the car, the Mach 5.
Yeah.
So every chance I got after I watched the show, I would sit down with a pencil and a paper, and I'd just be drawing that car. And a lot of fans that come to the shows and all know this story, but up until I was about 7 years old, that's all I would draw. I would just sit down and draw the Mach 5. And
Sean.
my father was a bit of an amateur cartoonist in his day, and he knew some basic, perspective art and stuff like that. And he came at me one day and said, "I'm sick of watching you draw this car the same exact way every time." And he taught me some basic perspective art with cubes and cylinders and things like that. And he taught me how to draw things from different angles. And it started from there. So now I'm like learning to draw cars and perspective art, and I was just loving all of it. And then one day I went to a little corner drugstore on a 75-cent allowance, and I bought my first comic book just because I was going in there to buy a candy bar, and I saw this really cool looking cover out there, which had these really weird looking characters. I mean, I knew who Batman was, and Spider-Man from the TV shows, and I saw these weird looking characters on there, and this one character just jumped out at me because he was big, he was in this red and yellow costume, and he had this metal looking skin, and I thought, that's just so cool looking. So I went over and I spent 50 cents out of my 75-cent allowance on giant size XMen #1.
So cool.
And
Hell yeah.
right off the spinner rack. And that's what made me want to draw comic books. And it was because of Gil Kane's cover art that made me buy it.
Yeah.
And then
That's awesome.
another time I was in there, the old guy that ran this little corner drugstore had a whole bunch of these older comics that were 12-cent cover price, things like that, but he was selling them for a nickel a piece. And I bought X-Men 56 and X-Men 57 for a nickel, and they were Neil Adams covers. And
Nice.
I bought them just because I loved the artwork. I just
Right.
loved the way Neil Adams draw in those books. So, between Gil Kane and Neil Adams, I didn't really buy it because I liked the characters. I just loved the artwork, and that just drew me into the X-Men even more because, that's what got me going was the artwork. And then I fell in love with the characters reading these, and of course I just had to buy more and more and more. So from like 1975 all the way up to almost year 2000, I was buying X-Men religiously. You know, every book they put out, everything that had an X on the front of it, I had to buy it. You know, because it was like I was like a crack addict. You know, I couldn't go a month without reading my X-Men. You know, it was sad.
Right.
I just couldn't do it. But that's what got me started. You know, as it was Speed Racer. It wasn't actually comic books. You know, but the comic books kicked me up a notch as far as wanting to draw. So, and then that's where the passion really came in.
Yeah, it was so. It's kind of cool. I mean, you started out kind of more like with the cartoons and stuff, and then graduated into like the visual art of a comic book, which is funny because I feel like that's kind of the same way I did. You know, like I was obviously a kid, huge into cartoons, and when I got introduced to the comic books, it like kind of completely changed my life because it was a completely different visual for art, but there was something really, really special about it that I couldn't pinpoint when I was a kid, but it just drew me in so much. And you're talking about looking at a cartoon that moves, and then looking at a comic book that's just still. But the comic book was a lot of times more interesting than the cartoons I was watching, and it was all because of the fantastic art and the styles that these guys, like you were talking about, would do at the time. So I mean, I wonder if that's kind of something that draws artistic people in, Sean. I mean, like, was that similar with you when it comes to that, as far as like like artists? Because I know a lot of artists that kind of do that. That's where they start.
Yeah, well, I had the comics around me because of my dad, and like, I was born in '81, so like all the cartoons of that generation, from like the Spider-Mans, the Hanna-Barbaras, Transformers, whatever.
Yeah,
it was all happening at once. Like it was all around me, so I couldn't say it was one or the other because there was a Spider-Man comic next to my couch and then on my TV. So who's to say? I can't really pinpoint it.
Yeah, well, the biggest influence that I thought what really grabbed me with the comics that you couldn't do in animation, at least back then, was put all that little detail in the backgrounds and the little subtle Easter eggs hiding in there, and guys like Todd McFarlane, and Tim Vigil. Tim Vigil was another major influence.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
Tim's detail work is right up there with Bernie Wrightson. And Tim just loves that meticulous little detail all over his paper, and that was another thing that just brought me up even higher, just wanting to do that sort of thing. And now with this one book I'm working on now with writer Chris Denmead, it's a novelization of Dracula that I'm doing illustrated pages on, and it's going to be kind of like the Bernie Wrightson Frankenstein book. Well, we're not going the big hardcover coffee table size. We're going to try to keep it like trade paperback size or comic size in general. But so it's giving me that excuse now to just get completely stupid with detail, like I've always wanted to, because I couldn't get away with that in the comics and covers I'm doing for like DC and Brian Fleetwood's Lady Death and stuff like that. So now I've got that excuse to sit down and draw like a gazillion lines in something. I mean, it's not even a real word, but by the time I'm done with it, it's going to be, because that's about the only number I can think of. It's going to work on these line counts.
Yeah, it's like a man after my own heart, because I'm so much into detail, probably more than I should be, because it takes me forever to draw stuff, and it's probably not the most economic when I'm trying to like produce a book. But there's just something about, because I grew up with so many of the artists that put such great detail into their work, and that's what I like to see visually, and that's what I like to draw. It's hard to pull myself out of that mindset when I'm drawing, but I notice a lot of that work, and I absolutely love it.
I like to draw everything like it's going to be printed in black and white. I mean, I see so many artists out there that have these beautiful, crisp, clean lines, and they get these incredible painting colorists behind them that add like such depth and texture to it.
Right.
But then when you take the color away from it, the line looks so simplistic.
Yeah.
It's almost like an animated cell without the color.
Right.
And but when you take that beautiful digital painting, like so many colorists out there do nowadays, it just gives it so much life. But I love adding all those gradient lines. I love, just throwing the shadows in there, the heavy contrasts, and colorists. I'm not going to lie. I've actually had a few colorists come out and say, "Would you please stop putting so much detail in this stuff? Stop putting so many lines in there. I have no room to work." And It's true. I'm very guilty of over rendering artwork. I'm terrible at it.
Well, I mean,
But
I think a good colorist should still be able to work around that with plenty of room to still put their influence in things. You know, I mean,
yeah, but it can hinder them with a lot of what they can do without just painting right over top of what I drew. And that does limit them a lot. Because I've colored my own work, and I hate coloring. I really do. I hate coloring my own work. So when they come back to me and say, you know, clean up those lines a little bit, or try not to add all that detail in there, because you know what it's like to color that? It's like, yeah, I do now, and I'm really sorry I did that because you're not being paid enough to color that. You know, I realize, you know, it's not always a good thing to over-render.
No, I would agree with you on that. Yeah, I will agree with you on that. But, you know, I've seen like, let's take Philip Tan, for instance. I've seen a lot of people color Philip Tan's work, whether it's just for an actual cover or if it's just like a piece, a commission or whatever. And if you study the line work he does and then the colored version, a lot of times the colorist will darken out so much of his lines that it loses a lot of the small line, the small details. And that's kind of what I was talking about. Like, yeah,
Bill's got a very organic line to it. I love the way he just, everything just has a soft feel, but nothing is static. Even his static poses, you feel like they're moving because of the way his lines work.
Yeah, he's got a very, unique's not the right word, but it's just the way he throws lines and the way he uses gradients instead of just like straight blacks. It's just, for throwing the lines, it might look like it doesn't have like a thought process to it, but I mean it really does. Like when you actually study how he does it, because like the rendering is so unique. It's a unique, it's kinetic. There you go.
Yeah, and I love the way he gets away with it. I've tried to mimic some of that style he's got, and I just can't figure it out.
I got lucky. I tried to do the same thing, and I can't. I can't. It's just so. It's unique.
His hand just doesn't move like mine does, and no matter what I do, I can't reach inside his head and just pluck it out. I mean, I'd love to.
Right.
But I've tried to re-engineer some of that. It just won't work. You know, my hand doesn't work like his does.
Right. But that's what I love about art, and that's what I love about artists. You know, I study a lot of people's work, and it's just the mind and the technique is so unique from person to person. I know a lot of styles can be similar, but the way a certain artist is going to do their own work is just so unique and beautiful to me when I'm studying their work. You know, it's the same thing with your style.
I've got like the worst hybrid of styles. I mean,
it's awesome.
Well, it's good in a way, but it's also bad because, you know, I do it for myself and I try to keep my own style to it, but because I've had so many influences over the years and favorite artists from like Bernie Wrightson to Neil Adams, to Tim Vigil, to Todd McFarlane, to Mark Silvestri, and it all shows. It really does all show in my work. Yeah. I mean, I'll do something with clean lines. Everybody say, "Oh, that kind of looks like Todd McFarlane," because I'm using a lot of lines, but I'm keeping them cleaner, and I'm just using a little bit of cross hatching. But then I go to the heavy line work and stippling and stuff like that. Next thing I know, like, hey, that's got a big Mark Silvestri vibe to it, and it's completely accidental. And I think I discovered that at Baltimore Comic-Con one year. I was sitting next to Matt Slay. We were sitting there, and somebody came up to me and said they wanted a Dark Knight 3 sketch cover done with Batman. They wanted kind of a Frank Miller-esque style. So I figured, okay, I just got to beef him up, square his jaw off a little more, and kind of sketch out the lines a little bit. And by the time I was done, it actually looked like Mark Silvestri drew it instead of Frank Miller. You know, and I got joking with Matt Slay. I said, I think I accidentally reverse engineered how Mark Silvestri draws and details. and it's because I had to use a thin Copic multi-liner and just sketch and doodle real fast. And it just became an accident that I reverse engineered how Mark Silvestri details stuff. And I've been doing it for a while because I've got, you know, nerve damage in my hands. And I thought, well, this is actually working better for me than I thought. So I really reverted back to my Bernie Wrightson stuff and some of the Tim Vigil stuff, where they had better line control over their brushes and their quills, where I'm using, you know, Copic multi-liners, micron pens, things like that. And I thought, Well, I got to scribble everything almost because my hands just don't want to hold a pen tight. So I thought, well, I'm just going to keep running with it and just make it work. I'm just going to have to use a lot of gradient shades and lines instead of heavy black and just make it happen. And it's been working pretty good so far.
Yeah, no, it absolutely has. Like we were saying before the stream, I really dig your style all around, and I think it's awesome. You have so many influences. Like Mike was saying, artists have a Rolodex of artists in their head. Mike McMahon specifically is talking about his styles all over the place as well. And I would say, Sean, would you think that's the same thing in your art? Because I feel like that's mine. Like sometimes I can see one influence over another depending on what I might be working on at that time, panel or a pinup, But I think that
I try to be. I attempt that, but it not always comes out the way I want it. So it is my shit. I'm sorry about cursing, but my stuff, how it comes out. Because you're like, oh, I like how this guy does hands, or this person does detail or foreshadowing, or you just kind of put it in and throw it out. Whatever comes out, comes out. It is what it is.
Yeah, that's what art really is. I think Bob Ross made the best analogy of how art works that I've ever heard. It's like artists don't make mistakes; we have a happy accident.
Right. Yeah.
And that's true. A lot of time we learn by screwing up, and sometimes it just happens to work for the better when we really screw that image up. It just like I said, it's a happy accident. I got lucky many times. I've screwed up drawings so bad with trying to flick a little white opaque to make a special effect and splattered across the page and thought, well, that looks better than what I was planning on doing, so I just kept it.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, go ahead, Sean.
I keep telling people, don't feel bad if you think you screwed up your artwork because somebody's going to love it.
Yeah.
That's a good point. I mean, honestly, yeah, unless you completely F up your picture, someone's actually going to dig it, And I think, like you said, I've done a lot of things where I've drawn before where I just threw some really weird lines and that wasn't what I was meaning to do, but it gave me a different idea and I went with it and it was actually better probably than what I was going to produce. It's just the kinetic, like Mike said, it was a great word. Kinetically, just how things kind of come out from your head and hit the paper. Sometimes
not overthinking it. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, you don't overthink it. Especially kind of a style that you were talking about, like you're having, Ken. I've tried to kind of mimic those styles sometimes, like the Silvestri style or whatever, where it seems like it's a little bit more sketchy. But the reason I do that is because I like it, because I feel like it's got a little bit more energy and it's a little bit more just from here to there, boom, you're putting stuff down and you're going. And
but also, I think sometimes it the whole image look like it's got something happening, even when it's not happening. And that's what I really like about it, because it makes your eye look at the whole thing instead of the point of focus. It also makes you want to look around the image to see what all's hiding in there. And I love always hiding something in there, something small, to see if somebody finds it,
Yeah.
And that's what I like doing.
Yeah, I'll put people's initials, or if I'm dating a certain girl at the time, it's I'll put her name in the background and that goes to hell. So it's that's a waste of a spot.
I got a very popular art print that I did a while back. It's a picture of the Incredible Hulk, just from the mid thigh upward of him busting out of rocks with his arms up in the air, and a lot of boulders and rock parts and small pebbles flying all over the background. And I always point out to people when they come up and they want to buy that art print. And it's oh, I want the Hulk print. I said, well, it's actually not a Hulk print. It's actually a Hulk versus Ant-Man print. Because somewhere hiding in there is Ant-Man flying off because he's being tossed with the rock. But there is a very tiny little Ant-Man drawn in there, and you got to really look for it.
Oh, that's dope.
Yeah, it's
really cool.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea.
Where Tank Pym, it's really cool. It was an afterthought, but I thought, what the hell? I want to draw Ant-Man in there and see if anybody finds it.
Right.
That's actually really cool.
Have fun doing it.
Yeah, that's an awesome idea. Yeah.
I mean, come on, Todd McFarlane hit Felix the Cat in almost every issue of Spider-Man.
Yeah, to get that one sale.
All right, I found that Hulk picture.
There's it. I love it.
Yep. Here, I'm going to bring this up. I had to, while you're talking about it, I was I need to go find that picture and see So where we at here?
Yeah, quit slacking, Joe. Hurry up.
Sorry. So here's the Hulk picture, and Ant-Man's right there. That's crazy. I never would have noticed that until you just said that.
Yeah, I always drop a hint because you have to hunt for him.
Ah, I get it.
Aha.
That's pretty awesome, man.
If you hunt for him, you will find him.
That's pretty cool. I'm
He's
gonna
actually right there by my signature on it. So
yeah. Ideas for you, Sean, says Michael.
What's up, Mikey? Yeah. I'll look. If anybody has great ideas, I'll be the first to try to take them into my arsenal, put them in my bag of tricks.
I mean, that's kind of what you do, right? I mean, you borrow stuff from other artists all the time. I think that's how you evolve your style. You learn new techniques. I take things I see an artist do that I really like that I'm not doing and try to figure out if I can do a similar thing, you know. Sometimes I can, sometimes I can't, you know, and sometimes it turns out completely different, but it becomes part of my unique style. And that's, you know, that's another thing about studying other artists' work.
Techniques out there that nobody knows about, that you struggle with, you fight with. When I first got into trying to do like certain splatter effects and energy flares and effects like that, I was literally drawing all the little circles and then trying to ink around them. Or then I'd grab the white out and like try to dot all these little spots. And it was completely nuts. I would spend hours just making little dots, you know, for like the space behind something, you know, and looking at the stars. There's like all these dots. And then I bumped into was it God, who was it told me that? Oh my God, I forgot the artist I talked to about it. But anyway, he said, well, just use a toothbrush. I said, what? He says, yeah. Get some real light white acrylic paint, water it down, and dip it in a toothbrush and flick it. I thought, why would I use a toothbrush on my drawing? Then he showed me, he gave me an example of it, and I thought, well, that's cheating. That's horrible. That's like Bob Ross with a knife painting a tree, you know? I mean, come on. Like, I'd spend all day painting that tree like Bob Ross with a brush and every little dot of snow, you know, and he just grabs that paint, that knife, and just draws a line down. It's a happy little tree, and there's some snow on it, and 10 feet away it looks like a photograph. Kills me. You know, and here I am, these guys out there with all this experience are sitting here saying, well, just take a credit card and a soft quill tip and you get these real tiny flicks. And I thought, well, now you tell me. I've already spent 20 years in this business screwing it up, and now you tell me? You know, they don't have how-to books on all these little cheat methods, you know?
Yeah.
But I've learned Q-tip. Aluminum foil works really cool, too. If you ball it up, keep it loose, roll it in India ink, and roll it across the paper, you get a nice, cool water shimmer.
I've never tried that before. I might have to.
I'm gonna give that a shot.
Yeah, you
gotta keep it loose. You gotta keep it creased up, but keep it loose, and then very lightly roll it across some India ink, and then across the paper, and then we get like a nice dry brush and pull it down. You get some really cool effects that way. You know?
Wow.
Yeah, I learned that from Masamune Shirow.
Really?
Yeah. Damn. It's so simple. It's like you can do like 1,000 lines with just rolling a ball of aluminum foil across it. Oh my God.
I love hearing about techniques like that. That just blows my mind because I never thought about things like that.
I mean, who thinks about inking a comic book with a ball of aluminum foil?
Yeah.
MacGyver.
Well, I remember the first time I learned about the toothbrush effect, and that blew my mind. Yeah, I can't remember how old I was, or even I don't know if I read about it in a magazine or something, but it was a while back. And I remember the first time I tried doing it, I completely messed it up because I didn't know what the hell I was doing. But I eventually got the feel of it. But it was just like, because I was in the 90s, I was always a huge fan of like that splatter, like let's say Stephen Platt, for instance, you know, like that splatter effect that you would use for blood or whatever. And when I learned how to do that with like a toothbrush, I mean, it completely changed a lot of the way I looked at drawing for a few years when I learned how to do certain techniques. That's just, I might have to try that foil thing. I'm gonna have to hit you up after this stream and get a little bit more in-depth detail on how to do that, because that sounds really interesting.
It's easy to do. You just need a good, decent paper plate, little, big enough paper plate to roll it in, but just a little bit of India ink on the plate, and Just roll it around, and then don't be afraid to make a mess because you're going to get it all over you. There's just no way around it. So I recommend rubber gloves because I didn't, and I ended up with like the worst speckle pattern across my hand. You know, I had the forethought of doing the wrinkling properly, but I was dumb enough to not grab a pair of gloves first. You know? But thank God it was water soluble because I was scrubbing the hell out of my hand to get that off.
What's your preferred ink to use? What brand?
I use a lot of stuff. I mean, I use a Higgins. I use a Speedball inks. I use typical Copic multiliner pens and the Micron pens. All that stuff out there, and just whatever works really. A lot of people, a lot of young fans out there asking, they say, like, what is the right tools to use? I said, there is no right tools.
No.
There are none.
Right.
It's whatever gets the editor happy.
Sure.
When you're working on a book like Batman or Harley Quinn, and they don't care how you get from point A to point B, as long as you get there and it prints good. That's all they care about.
That's
they
true.
Don't care about your muse. You're like, oh, I was inspired by the Canterbury Farms of 1812. Like, I don't care. Just hit your deadline.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, that's it. I mean, you gotta take care of the editors. I mean, when I first worked for DC Comics, I mean, I was approached by Cate Hubert. She was, I think, the associate editor on the Bat books at the time.
Really?
And she's the granddaughter of Joe Hubert. And knowing that she was the granddaughter of Joe Hubert, I felt extreme amount of pressure. And then I found out that Andy and Adam Hubert were her uncles. So that quadrupled the pressure I felt on my shoulders to do something good for her. And no stress. No, I mean, just Joe Hubert's granddaughter, and Andy and Adam are sitting there looking over my shoulder the whole time, right? So no pressure. But to have worked to work with somebody like that and those kind of editors that I had at DC. I mean, Mike Martz is over at Aftershock Comics now, and Katie's still with DC as far as I know. And they are like the most underappreciated people in the comic industry. I mean, most artists will sit there and say, "Oh, I hate my editor. They're slave drivers. They're the worst. They're overly demanding. They want me to change things all the time." And they don't realize that the editor of the book is the middleman. You're at the bottom of the totem pole as the artist. The editor is the middleman who deals with everybody that's up here screaming at them. I mean, now you got DC Comics now, it's owned by Warner Brothers, which is owned by AT&T. So you've got like layers and layers and layers of executives screaming at these poor editors saying, get it right. And it's their job to get it right, not yours. I mean, you got to get it right by what they tell you to do. But the editors are under so much pressure all the time, and they have to know how to do graphics. They know how to fix lettering. They have to know how to do all the pre-press work, and it's a lot of stress on them. And they're the most unappreciated, in my opinion. In the comic industry is the poor independent editors out there that are trying to just do one book or two books. Then you got the associate editors, the group editors, and it's a snowball effect that just rolls down to the artists to make them happy, so they don't lose their job. You might get yelled at, but they can get fired.
Yeah.
Editors are the unsung heroes of the comic industry. They really are.
Well, since you brought up DC and stuff, let's backtrack a little bit into your past. How did you get noticed by some of these bigger companies, and how did you get work by them? And how did that?
The first thing I ever did was actually for Marvel Comics back in 1990, and it never got published. It was like a giant size What If book. Yeah. It was 40 pages of interior artwork and cover work. Plus, it had a 5-page backup story, plus ads, et cetera, et cetera. But I penciled 40 pages of artwork that never got published. I penciled and inked all of it, and it kind of sucked that it never saw print.
Yeah, I bet.
And I was very young and naive, and I had a bit of a chip on my shoulder with the business at the time because I didn't know anything. I was really ignorant of how the business worked. And this was back before emails and internet, so everything was snail mail, and I had to mail all the original artwork to them. So when I found out they were going to cancel the book, I threw the worst temper tantrum you can imagine, and got just pissed off. I mean, there's a lot more to this story than that, but I'm going to take a bit of responsibility because I did get a little irritable for more reasons than just canceling the book.
Okay.
But I never got any of the artwork back when I requested it, et cetera, and I never saw it again. But I decided not to go after DC Comics at that point. I decided, I was working in the cutting dye industry. I was making good money. So I decided to mainly stay part-time doing artwork. And eventually I ended up with doing some small publisher stuff for a long time here and there, just nickel and dime stuff. I was doing a lot of European books. I was doing some stuff over in Italy and one small comics over in France. I was doing books for those.
Oh.
And yeah, so I was international before I was local, really, as far as published goes. And then I started getting into books like AC Comics' Femforce. I was doing interior stuff for that and covers for their Femforce book, their Men of Mystery, and a couple other things. And I was doing stuff for Cardinal Comics with Steve Crompton. I was doing covers for him.
Nice.
I actually, one of my first things I did for him ended up as a pinup in this book called Demi's Pinup Diary. And I loved it because when he finished editing the book, my picture was adjacent to a picture done by Tim Vigil.
Really?
So at that point, I thought, this is just an honor. I'm like opposite page of Tim Vigil.
Yep, that's awesome.
So I was just basking in the glow. And I mean, I didn't get paid a lot. I mean, Steve Crompton wasn't exactly swimming in funds at the time, just, to be paid $5. I didn't care. I was published next to Tim Vigil. I was happy.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So I didn't care. People were looking at my stuff at the same time as his. I didn't care.
Yep.
But I was doing a lot of independent stuff mostly. And then all of a sudden I got that email from Cate Hubert, asking why am I not working for them? And I just said, I don't know, because I never submitted to you, But apparently one of her friends shared an image I did of my Joker. And Cate saw it on her Pinterest page. And that's when she contacted me and asked why I wasn't doing any work for them. So and that's how I ended up getting in DC. I mean, an editor saw my work and contacted. Nice. I never sent a submission.
That's
and it just kind of blossomed from there because I was doing cover work on the Talon book. I did the only cover that actually had Batman on the cover with Talon in the whole series, and I did a couple covers for that. I did I did a bunch of what they called inventory covers for them that may get used one day. I don't know. But I also did a Harley Quinn 25th anniversary #1 exclusive cover, which was a lot of fun. I did that for a store up in Altoona, Pennsylvania called the Comics Vault.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, cool.
Have you been up there? You seen that one?
I just know them. Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, it's a great store.
Through Heather, we is how I met a bunch of people. So it's great.
Small okay. Yeah, I mean it's a real tight knit community once you get into all this stuff. I mean, everybody knows each other out there. It's really awesome. But yeah, but ever since I started doing stuff with DC, once you throw Marvel and DC onto your resume, it really kind of opens doors for you.
Oh,
to a certain extent. I mean, I like doing it for them, but my heart's really with the independents out there because I get more creative control on it. Because back in 2010, I was approached by a gentleman named Lee Giles, and he was launching a comic company called About Time Comics, and he had this book called Godsend, which I have done all the covers for that book since it came out. And I was there at the ground floor with him, and he had the rough design for it, and I just did a pinup for him. And it became the definitive look of the character Godsend for that title.
Nice.
And I just love drawing it. I love working with the guys down at About Time Comics. Lee Giles and Eric Dodson. They're pretty much the founders of the company. And they've got some great stuff out there. They got some good stories. And when ever Lee contacts me and says, "Oh, I need another cover for Godsend coming up. Issue 4, issue 5, issue 6." I asked him. I said, "What do you want?" He goes, "Just do something. I'll use it. I don't care." So I tell him, "Well, send me something from the pages. Let me see what I'm working with here." And the first 2 issues were just gallery shots of Godsend. I mean, I don't want to say generic, but basically just generic gallery shot. The third one, I went in more of an action shot with him fighting this really cool looking demon character. And issue 4, I stepped it up to have a lot more interaction between him fighting demons and militaresque guys. So it really kind of crowded that cover in. And it just, they don't really ask me, to follow a guideline. They just say, "Hey, Ken, here, draw this for us. Here, draw this, give us a cover and just run with it." And that's what I like to know. I like to know they trust me enough to put something out that they're going to love.
Yeah.
That makes me feel good knowing that they have that much confidence in me. Whereas Marvel and DC, you send them you can send them up to 20 concepts, and they might pick one of this, and they want half of this one over here, and part of that one over there. And I was sending at least 5 drafts to DC for every cover I did. And that's just part of the game. And when I do stuff for Brian Polito, like with the Lady Death covers or the whatever he wants me to do, he usually asks for like 3 different drawings, and he'll pick something out of each one, or he'll pick one and say, "I want that one." And that's Brian's easy. I love working with Brian Polito.
Yeah, I like a lot of your Lady Death stuff you've done. So when you do that, is it just kind of like preliminary loose sketches that you send out, and then he picks it, and then you finish it out, or you send it like full blown ideas, and then he picks the one he likes, or how's that work?
Well, when I draw Lady Death, what I do is I'll flesh out about 80% of the drawing. I mean, I won't go into full detailed pencil, but I'll get it really close enough that if I threw it off to an inker, they could do something with it.
Okay.
But so what I do is when he doesn't want the other ones, I always find a way to use them. So I already got some pencils laid out for something I can use later. Maybe I can turn it into a piece for Vampirella, or maybe just whatever commission somebody comes up with says, "Hey, I want a sexy rogue taking a shower." It's like, well, I got a Lady Death piece that never got used, and I can rework in a few minutes and save me about a half a day's worth of work.
Recycling.
So
Recycling is great.
Great idea.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
You can't let it go to waste. I mean, you spend all that time drawing it in the first place. Make it used somewhere. Put it to work. Every artist has got something laying around they can reuse.
Truth.
Let's see. All right.
What are you looking at?
I'm sorry. While we're talking, since we're talking a bunch about art and stuff, I'm gonna bring up a bunch of your art while we're talking about it. So
okay,
I've been going through downloading a bunch of stuff so I can upload it here in a second. But how's it going, Elliot? How do you feel about those covers that have nothing on it related to the interiors? Is that something you like to do? It's a good question.
Sometimes no. I like doing something that's got something to do with the interior work. Gallery covers are pretty generic, but you can still make them really cool looking and appealing to the readers. But a lot of it comes from the old days when, like the 70s and early 80s, where everything was related to the story internally. And it kind of spoils people a lot. So in the 90s, with all the variant covers and the explosions there, it became a trend to just create cool looking gallery covers that may not have anything to do with what's inside. That recent Lady Death cover, that's the cover coming out for Scorched Earth #2. That actually hits shelf September 30th.
That is beautiful.
Yeah,
oddly enough, it's coming out on my birthday.
Really?
It's coming out on my birthday, and I'm going to be spending my birthday at Twilight Zone Comics down in Glen Burnie, Maryland, for a signing for that book.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool. Let's see. Yeah, just keep on.
Jersey girl hair.
I've got a full tour going with that, actually. I've got a 6-store tour I'm doing for that book.
Really? That's awesome.
Yeah, it's starting out on September 30th, then jumping to October 2nd. I'll be at to be continued comics down in Crofton, Maryland. I'll be there for that, and then on the September or October 3rd, I'll be at Chuck's Comics in Essex, Maryland. Then October 4th, I'll be in Four Corners Comics in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. Then the following weekend, on the 10th, I'll be at Comics World in Chambersburg, Pennsylvania. And then I will be on October 11th, I'll be at Comic Store West in York, Pennsylvania.
Nice.
Now, how are they setting these up with what's going on in the world? Like, how are you going to meet the, like, because it's kind of unknown, like, are you set up at a table? Or they
everybody's worried about the social distancing, of course. The stores are worried about how many people they let in the store at a time. And a few weeks back, I did a couple store signings at those two stores, Twilight Zone and To Be Continued Comic. Just to kind of get the ball rolling, to let people know that we still want to come out to see everybody. We have to take these precautions, not just because we care about people's health and things like that, but because of also the stipulations of state laws right now. We don't want to jeopardize the businesses.
For sure.
We don't want to put anybody's health at risk either. So you take into consideration that we're going to be sitting behind the table. I mean, I don't get to see people's smiles when they walk up to the table, because we're all going to be wearing face masks. Yeah. And I'm sitting there wearing a mask, and it sucks. It does. I'm not going to lie. I hate wearing the mask, but you got to do what you got to do right now. And
true.
So they let a certain amount of people in the store at a time. Normally I would love to sit there and spend a half an hour chatting with people, but when you got a line of people coming into a store to get autographs and sketches, things like that, you can't spend all day talking to one person. You got to kind of keep it moving, and that's where my wife comes in a lot for me, especially like at conventions and store signings, because I'm not gonna lie, my wife works her ass off behind the table. And she's pretty much like a huge crutch for me, because I'll be sitting there drawing away on sketches, and she just covers everything. She talks to the people, she brings people in, and they just love her.
That's awesome.
And so with the stores that do this, we always take limited people in and try to keep them moving, try to keep them going through so more people can come in. It's like those overcrowded conventions, one person out, one person in kind of thing. So we're not overcrowded. We just got to do it that way just to make sure everybody stays. We look at that. We take all that into consideration.
That's really cool. You guys have that kind of working relationship.
Oh, yeah.
I feel
my
like
wife's also my biggest critic. It's horrible, actually.
Well, I guess that's what makes you guys a great team.
Yeah, right.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, she's my best critic, because we'll sit there at a convention. I'll be doing just a quick sketch for somebody, and I'll pass it over to her and let her look at it, and she'll just give me a look. She doesn't have to say anything. She just gives me a look. That means I got to redraw it, because apparently I did something wrong here. It's just a blank look. It's just one of those things where you can just read it and tell you screwed up. You got to redraw it. Or she'll say, I like it, but something's missing. And as soon as she says that, I'll usually look at it again and go, yep, I got to do this. And she's like, there it is. Now you got it.
It's always good to have a second pair of eyes. That's for sure.
Now, my fans have gotten actually just as spoiled to her at conventions and store appearances as seeing me. A lot of times, they if I go somewhere, and I had this happen a couple years ago in Harrisburg, the Harrisburg Comic-Con years ago. My fans up in that area in Pennsylvania knew me, and the promoters, everybody knows my wife, and I showed up there, and my wife wasn't with me when I walked in the door to check in, and the promoter said, "Where's Joyce? Where's your wife?" "Oh, she had to work this weekend. She couldn't be here." And the first thing out of their mouth was, "Are you going to be okay?" Yeah, I'm a big boy. I think I can handle it. I'll be all right. The fans were coming up I had fans coming up offering to help me behind my table because my wife wasn't there. And they had a legitimate concern for me because she was not there. And when they did that, I realized just how important she was behind the table, not just to me, but to the fan.
Yeah.
You know, and they do. When she's not there, they notice it. They really notice the difference at my table because I sputter and I make such a mess behind the table because I am not the most organized person in the world. And my wife, she's on the ball with everything. You know, and they miss her when she's not with them.
That's awesome. Got a couple questions here, and I'm gonna ask them, and while you're answering them, I'm gonna pull up some more of your art so that everybody in the chat can see. If you aren't familiar with Ken's work, get familiar with Ken's work, and that's what we're gonna do. So Elliot says, "Great to hear about your origins. What are your top 3 favorite X-Men artists?"
My top 3 X-Men artists. I'm gonna have to go with Neil Adams right off the bat because you know I just loved his realistic style on things. Probably followed closely by Paul Smith. That's because I just loved the lines in that run he did.
Yeah.
And after that, I'm gonna have to jump to Mark Silvestri.
Yeah. Sean, what are your,
There's a lot of
3?
artists on X-Men I loved. You know.
Yeah,
a lot
there's been a lot of guys that have graced the pages of X-Men that have been awesome.
My top 3, I think they're all associated with Terry Austin. So let's make it clear that all this stuff I basically like has Terry Austin in it. So, you know, of course, I'm going to say John Byrne, Paul Smith as well. And then it's kind of like Rick Leonardi. Like, as a kid, I thought Rick Leonardi's run was longer than it was. But I just realized I was a kid and my attention span was a lot different than adults. So, yeah, but, yeah, you know, like Rick Leonardi, anything that Terry Austin touched, I would say is in any realm of
Terry Austin can make anybody and make it look good.
Yeah, I've heard tales of him and his tricks of how to get his hatches and what he does to modify his nibs. And I'm like, genius. Yeah. You know, like the guy's a genius.
Joe Rubinstein were like gods of ink. I mean, what Joe Rubinstein, you know, I mean, what he did on the Wolverine limited series over Frank Miller's pencils. You know, I mean, Frank Miller gets all the credit for that book, but I'm gonna say 90% of that imagery is actually more Joe Rubinstein than it is Miller. You know, I mean,
I heard people say he kind of pulled. Yeah, like I heard somebody say like he pulled Frank back into from a certain thing he was kind of going with it into what it was, and it's phenomenal. Don't get me wrong. You know.
Yeah.
Like his Infinity Gauntlet stuff when he did over Perez and Lim, beautiful shit.
Right. You know? Oh yeah. Yeah, Joe can ink almost anybody too and make him look good, just like Terry Austin. And I had the pleasure of having that too. A couple. Yeah, Joe inked my Daredevil piece. I don't know if you can find that on there, but Joe Rubinstein inked my Daredevil, and he also inked my Batman Rogues Gallery. It had the Joker and a lot of other characters on there. He inked both of those.
Hold on a second. I do have that one. That was one I was going to bring up. Let's see. It's right. Is it this one you're talking about?
No.
It's a badass picture though.
No.
See, Rogue.
It's
actually it's got the Joker. It's the largest Joker, full like 3/4 body shot. Got a whole bunch of other villains on it. Is what it is.
Oh, it's not that one either. Man,
not that one either.
All right, I'm gonna find
a whole bunch of the villains on one picture.
Dropping the ball. Oh my god!
Fire.
All right, that's it.
Just find the Daredevil. There you go.
I got it. There it is.
That's one Joe. All right.
Yeah, that's
there
awesome.
You go. Yeah, Joe's amazing. Loved his inks.
Yeah, he's never lost his touch. Like he's older in age, and you know some artists kind of they get kind of tired. Well, but he's still kind of.
Joe's an incredible artist in his own right. I mean, have you ever seen any of his portrait work? It's amazing.
Yeah, I think I have.
Oh my God, Joe's just a phenomenal artist. I mean, whether it be with an ink pen or black and white ink or full on acrylic and oil paints, Joe is just unlimited. I love watching Joe work.
I'm going to look for that Daredevil one, but before I do, first off, my X-Men artists are Silvestri, Lee, and Hubert. Those are my.
Oh, okay.
Which Hubert?
Andy's run in the 90s. Yeah. I mean, I love Adam's run on Wolverine. He's one of my favorite Wolverine artists, along with Silvestri.
Yeah.
Andy's run with the X-Men in the '90s, I thought was great. I loved it. Obviously Jim's, and then before him, Silvestri. Kenneth
Andy's
Page.
got a lot of Joe's style to him, I noticed.
You know what's cool about, and I'll get back to this question in a second, but what's interesting about the Hubert brothers in general is they have such a wide range of style that they use. If you look at them, their careers, how they've, and that shows how good of artists they are, because they can pull all these different styles. Like, I'm kind of grounded with my style. I'm sure if I spend a lot of time, I could probably work on a different style, but like my style is what you get, and that's just, maybe that's a deficiency in my art skills. But you guys like the Huberts, they can draw like the bold action '90s stuff that they did, and then they can refine it when you get into the 2000s and you look at some of the stuff that they're doing now. It's completely different.
Well, they evolved beautifully with the styles necessary. They really
are. And pretty experimental in some aspects of like I forget which one did the Ultimate Fantastic Four. That was crazy. Like, cool story, but the art was beautiful.
Adam?
Perspectives, maybe, I don't know. I get them confused.
Yeah, I think it was Adam, but I can't remember.
You know, what's bad is I haven't really sat down and read comic books in over 20 years. You know, it's so bad because I sit here and draw them all day long, and that's all I do is I sit here and draw them. I read scripts. I've got a whole short box full of comics that I've worked on, that I've drawn, that I've got covers on, and I've not read a single one of them. You know, and that's pretty bad. You know, to sit here and actually draw comics for a living, but I don't have time to read them. You know, I miss reading them. I miss going to the comic book stores and shopping. There's the Daredevil that Joe was mentioning.
That's a powerful gesture.
Yeah, I love it. I love the twist.
Yeah.
I love how artists, and I try to do the same thing when I'm drawing, but I love how you can take the anatomy and just twist it enough to give that action and flow to the picture. I mean, and a lot of people are, maybe the body doesn't twist like that, but I really don't care because the visual,
it's comic books. Yeah,
exactly, it's comic books. The visual aspect of the way it looks that's the way it should be. And if you can twist and you can move the character around in all these crazy positions you're not going to see in real life, that's what I love to see. And it's an awesome pose you got there.
It's a cool factor.
Yeah.
You want to see.
That's why everybody fell in love with Todd McFarlane's Spider-Man, because he put him in these completely bone-shattering positions that seriously should have disjointed him several times over. But it worked. He made it work, and it looked gorgeous.
Yeah, a lot of milk deficiency.
There's a question. I'm gonna get to Kenneth Page's question here in a second, but since we're looking at this Daredevil question for all the artists out there, and I always like to pick the mind of people when I'm looking at shadow work and how you're throwing shadows. When you were drawing this, what was your thought process on where the shadows were coming and how you wanted the shadow to lead the eye to Daredevil? What was your thought process when constructing this?
Well, when I first started drawing it, I wanted a lot of black on him. So I focused on the light source where it was coming from, like right behind his head and over his shoulder. So I wanted to have a lot of black on him because he's a night vigilante type character, and he works better in the dark because he's blind. So you got to have a lot of darkness to the red, in my opinion. I mean, I've always loved that part. You don't see a lot of it done in the books, but I always thought he should be a little bit darker red, so I like doing heavy blacks. So I started spotting where I wanted to have a lot of shadow, and I just kind of built the scene around him, and like the black over his behind him, on the bricks behind him up there. I didn't want all black. I didn't want to have all that blackened out because I needed some kind of depth. I wanted some kind of texture in the bricks, and that's why I wanted to kind of the cracked plaster look, give it more of an urban appeal. I have no idea what he's standing on. I have no idea what it's attached to or where it's coming from. I just needed to put him on something, and I wanted it to look cool. Because I mean, really, I mean, like these little gargoyles on like a window ledge, but he's not on a window. Because it's really pointless what he's standing on. But I just had to make something
cool.
Right.
Yeah, and it leads your eye directly to his eyes. Like if you look at the way that the shadow is,
Yeah,
like it's
I
right
used
there.
it to point. I used it to point up to it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, because the lines, if you look at the black lines behind him, it all points down to the lower right-hand side.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
if you follow the black from those, it brings you right back up to his face. It's a subliminal line pattern.
Yeah.
Genius. Yeah.
Yeah. I was that. You know, that's one thing when you're really learning how to lead the eye, not only on panel work, but just like on a splash or a pinup or a cover. That I think is really knowledgeable that these young artists or just any artists in general should always try to emulate, to try to know how to do that. Because when I was a younger
Yeah.
artist, I didn't know anything about that. I was just like cool position pose, throw some background in there, and that's all you needed.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't
Exactly.
studying
Well,
techniques.
that's the
Purpose.
hardest part of telling a story in a comic book that a lot of people get wrong. I mean, I did. I screwed it terribly when I was younger. I didn't get it until George Perez pointed it out to me when I met him, back in 1983. I was just a pup back then, just wanted to learn how to draw, and he explained to me that you got to draw it like a Z on a comic page. From the top left to the right, down to the bottom left to the right. It's like drawing a Z, and that's the direction you're going to make the reader's eye move. And I thought, well, that's weird. Why would you do that? And it didn't even dawn on me that I was already reading it like that.
Right.
And if you take the dialogue completely off the page, the lines in the comic panels will direct your eye in that Z pattern. And then I finally learned that it was subliminal direction lines that the artists were putting in there to make the eye move from that panel to where he wants them to go.
Yeah.
And a lot of artists don't realize that you have to do that in a comic book. I mean, we instinctively read in America left to right.
Right.
Then down, left, right, down again. It's completely opposite in Japan with manga.
Yeah.
But in America, when you're drawing American comics, you got to go left, right, down, left, right. And that's a subliminal thing you have to do to tell the story visually on comics. And a lot of people don't realize that.
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of great artists out there can draw the most beautifully detailed pieces and be the most phenomenal artists you'll ever see, but they can't tell a story to save their life.
Right. Yeah.
And I mean, I was one of them for the longest time. I just couldn't figure out how to make it work until I literally would draw the Z pattern out, and I made sure that every panel had something pointing those lines until I got my brain trained to make my hand do it.
Yeah.
It's silly. It's really silly if you think about the premise, but it's a subliminal thing our brains think of.
What's really cool is when
eyes
you learn the technique, it becomes real fun to then, with that knowledge, lay out strategically when you're laying out your page or laying out your drawing, to add those things in, because then your mind start working on what can you do to lead the eye, what can you do to pull things out to the way you want it to see, especially when you're doing panel to panel work. I noticed that once I started getting the hang of actually doing storytelling when it came to that, it was really fun to try to construct the panel to lead the eye to where you want it to go, the Z pattern on the page. It's really cool aspect of drawing comics that unless you're an artist, you don't know, because it's just so fluid. When you open up a book, you read it, but all the work that goes behind it, all the behind the scenes magic, so to speak, to make it flow, is so cool.
Yeah, I mean, you can sit there and draw pictures all day long, but you can sit there, and I've done editorial work. I'm an editor for a young company right now called Essential Comics. I'm editing all their books right now, so I get to nitpick the artists. So we've got some really good artists with us, and I'm always going back saying, you need to change this angle because it makes my eye go left instead of right. Or you got this perfect panel in the middle, but it's making me look up instead of down at the panel below it.
Right.
So I'm like always trying to throw that in at these guys, because we do have a couple of fairly inexperienced guys. They've got the talent, they've got the skills, but they still need that little refinement. So you got to kind of throw that reminder out there, and they'll say, well, I really like the way I drew that. I said, I don't care. I'm sorry. It's a great looking drawing, but it goes against the story flow, and you got to switch it. And that's where you got to be the bad guy as the editor, and that's why some people You know, I know a couple of the guys out there, they like me, but they hate working with me because I am an artist and they can't slide these little tricks under the door with me.
Sure.
You know, so it's cool having an editor that can draw and give you the pointers, but it's also a problem because they can't get away with anything. You know, because I've done that. I've tried to get away with this stuff, and I know what they're going to fall. And like, yeah, they don't want to work with me because I can find all the little tricks that they're trying to get away with. And
but
they love me.
That's going to improve them, though. You know, that's what's going to make them a better illustrator is your guidance. You know, they may be young, so they don't kind of put two and two together, but they will. You know.
Yeah. I don't like just coming down on somebody. I like giving that constructive criticism. You know, I don't sit there and say, "Oh my God, you really sucked at that panel. What were you thinking?" You know, I never say that. I mean, I want to sometimes when it's really on my nerve, but I'll sit there and I'll just give them the truth of it. It's like, it's a great looking panel, but you can make it better if you do this, or if you add this, or angle it this way. And you know, it's all in how you talk to them. You know, I got to be the bad guy because I am the editor. But I'm also working for the publisher, so he's got to be happy. If he's not happy, I'm not happy. And if I'm not happy, the artist is definitely not going to be happy.
Yeah.
Yep.
You know, it rolls downhill, as they say.
Yeah. We're hitting the hour mark, but I want to get some of these questions in here. So Kenneth Page Sr. said, will Mr. Hunt be doing commission work on his Lady Death tour?
Yeah, I'll be doing quick sketches while I'm there. I will be doing some quick sketches and stuff. Right now I'm like really backed up. I've got like 15, 20 commissions on my plate right now, on top of doing the cover work and the Dracula book I'm working on, which we're launching Kickstarter in October. Hopefully at the end of October we'll be launching that Kickstarter. But yeah, I will be doing some sketching and stuff like that on my Lady Death tour.
Nice, that's awesome.
I won't be doing full-blown commissions while I'm sitting there. I'll be trying to do like, you know, as quick commissions, things like that. The budget-friendly stuff, I like to call it.
Right. And then Elliot said, is there a certain formula to learn how to add those lines on a comic page, or is that something that you learn as you work more on comics? Is there a certain formula to learn how to add those lines on comic page?
It's how can I put this? When you're drawing a comic book, I want to sit there and say a lot of people think it's talent. It's not. It's only 10% talent. It's 90% skill set. So anything you do with comic related is practice and refinement. I mean, when it comes to, if they're talking about like the level of detail in lines, or you know, if they're talking about the directional lines to make the eye flow.
Right.
So do we know exactly what they're referring to?
Elliot, if you want subliminal line stuff that he mentioned. So I think that's
okay,
what he's talking
subliminal
about.
Line.
Yeah.
Sure. It helps if you take like a real light, lay out your panel shapes and you know kind of where you want the panels to fall. But take a very light line of a pencil and just draw the Z, you know, from panel layer to panel layer. You know, if you got 3 sets of panels coming down, you're gonna be doing 2 Z's. You know, if you got 4 panels, you're gonna be doing 1 big Z. So just draw those lines very lightly, so you know where those panels are gonna fall, and you know which direction you got to move. You need one little thing to make your eye go from one panel to the next. So if you got a panel 1, you got a panel 2, and then you got panel 3 below panel 1. You need something in panel 2 to direct their eye to panel 3. Panel 3 needs a point to panel 4. Panel 4 needs a point to panel 5, etc., etc. So it could just be in action lines. It could be shadow points. It could be the character pointing at something. You know, it's something subtle that just makes the eye go that direction. If the bad guy's pointing a gun at the good guy, make sure that gun is pointing towards the next panel. You know, things like that. It's just little things. It doesn't have to be something obvious. It could be something subtle in the background, like just the lines of the clouds moving, or the lines of the building.
Like smoke or debris that's kind of just drifting to the next panel.
Exactly.
It can be really simple stuff, and I think that's what's cool about being able to set up panels like that when you're leading it to the next panel. Is you could really make it whatever you want as long as the action is flowing to the next panel and directing your eyes
That's exactly what you need to be able to do. And it doesn't matter what you're using as long as it's got a subliminal line, which the reader doesn't really see, but it's there to make the eye believe it's moving that way.
Right. Let me. Joyce says, "Thank you for having my husband on your podcast." Absolutely. Thank you
Thank
for
you for
having my husband on your
what is
podcast.
that?
That's my wife. She's downstairs babysitting our dog right now. You know, God bless her. She's sitting down there probably watching like one of the worst TV shows ever. You know, just waiting for me to get off of here so she can go to bed. So if you look around, we're in our bedroom right now, and she's like,
Yeah.
I want to go to bed soon.
Got the message.
Well, we're going to end this here pretty soon. I'm going to pop up a couple of pictures that I just absolutely love that you have produced. And a lot of this stuff, like you said, I like how you talk about, like, you draw everything like it's going to be in black and white with just kind of like how your style is. And I love how you work the blackout to the gradient patterns. You know, this Batman is just, it's awesome how like the cape disappears into the bats and the bats are leading up to the bat symbol. Just
my favorite part of that image is the cape in the front that's draped over the pedestal he's standing on.
Yeah.
All those tiny little lines in there.
Yeah, I love that. And it's extremely hard to do. I guess it looks like it might be easy, at least in my mind, to get those patterns to where they actually look like they could be correct, and then to add the extra lines and everything, how they fold over each other. I mean, it's just so well done. It's a really beautiful picture you got there.
Thank you.
You are welcome. We're gonna a couple more here. Let's see. What are the good ones? I'm gonna pull these out. Oh yeah, this was probably one of my favorite Spider-Man pictures I've ever seen, and I love the webbing. You know, like that was a lot.
I like the black and white of that better than I like the color. I colored that myself. Yeah, I'm gonna look a little weird in frame here because I gotta move my phone over right now so I can plug it up because my phone's telling me my battery's about to die. So hang on just a second here.
Yeah, you're fine.
There we go.
Quick.
There we go. So yeah, and I'm gonna hold my phone because my phone cord's too short. And I look like I got a halo because of the light behind me.
Well, before we let you go, is there anything you want to?
Yeah, that Spider-Man was one that I learned a lot of tricks with on that. I had learned a lot of cheat methods on that because that picture I had everything drawn out. I started inking all those little black spots you see in between the webs.
Yeah.
And it dawned on me I've got a beautiful paintbrush and a big bottle of white acrylic paint. So I just inked a lot of the areas up and then just went crazy with the white paintbrush.
Yeah, I love it.
To make all those lines in a spiral formation. That was a lot of fun.
Did you know from the get-go you wanted to do a spiral formation, or was that just something you started to mess with and saw it as it?
I did actually, because I was outside one day and I saw a funnel web on this spider web. It was this in the grass. Common grass spiders make these beautiful web like funnels and like a little vortex shape to them. And they're kind of creepy looking because you almost look like you want to stick your finger down that hole, but you know better.
Yeah.
And it'd be cool to draw that. A vortex. You know, just make a vortex of spider webs.
Yeah.
That's wild.
Absolutely beautiful. There's going to be one more.
Because I actually saw a real spider web that made me think of that.
One more of my favorite ones I've seen you do is this one. Such a cool pose, such a cool shot there, Ghost Rider. And again, the use of the chain to lead the eyes to kind of, I mean, everything really that you see, if you trace it, can trace right back to Ghost Rider. Go up the bike, you lead your way through the chain. You got the awesome background, flames and everything there. Just a well put together image. So a lot of young artists out there, check out Ken's work. We're going to ask him here in a second where you can find all of his work, and go like his pages and check it out, because you can definitely learn stuff by just studying his work. Absolutely
Oh,
awesome
show.
art. Definitely. Last thing, comment here.
And it's going to get a
Jerry
lot more interesting soon. Because,
yeah, what are you working on?
that Dracula book is really going to show a lot of cool ways to either screw up a drawing or teach you a lot of ways to learn how to make gradients with a lot of little lines. Because I'm going completely crazy with the line work on this stuff.
Yeah, we're looking forward to it. When's that Kickstarter again?
We haven't launched the Kickstarter yet. We're looking at the end of October to launch the
End of October.
Kickstarter.
Okay, we'll be on the lookout for that.
So if they follow me on my Facebook page, Ken.
Yep. Froze. You're there. He's just doing really good acting. Jerry Rasco. Beauty is once you figure out the rules is when you can then break them for the effect and emphasis. Yeah, absolutely. And I think he's talking about when you're doing a page layout.
Jerry will be on next month.
Yep. We're going to get Ken back here real quick, and we'll wrap up the show. But I want to make sure that he can plug everything he needs to plug. Yeah, Jerry, when's Jerry going to be on?
Let me double check. Should be on the point. Dropping the ball. Friday, October 16th. Jerry Rasco.
There you go. That'll be a fun show.
King of Texas.
King of Texas. I've been down to Texas. There he is. He's back.
Okay, I think I can hear you.
All right. Well, before we lose you again, I'm going to say it's a pleasure having you here. Dropped it.
Oh, no, it's my pleasure to be here. Any way to contact, get some contact with the fans out there, I'm happy.
Yeah, absolutely. And, it's great, too, because I love talking, like, the behind the scenes of actually drawing, because I think sometimes, we'll get people on here, we'll just talk about, their accomplishments or their art in general. It's really cool to have an in-depth conversation about page layout and, like all that kind of concept, because I think it's a lot of people, especially younger artists that follow us on here, they want to know, and it really helps them out too. So that was a very fun conversation.
Yeah, I try to mentor as many people as I can. I try to give as many pointers as I can, and I tell them to message me on Facebook if you have any questions, and be patient with me getting back because I am busy, and I try to be as honest as I can and give good constructive criticism when I can, and I try to convey as many good points as possible because I didn't have any formal training. I'm completely self-taught, and the only school I went to was the one of Hard Knocks, and believe me, I screwed up so bad so many times. I was drawing on the wrong size paper. I was doing the wrong size panels. I had the wrong scaling. I mean, if they took the paper I was working on and shrunk it to size, it'd be the wonkiest looking comic you'd ever see. It was all wrong. I mean, I didn't know anything about publishing and printing at the time when it comes to comics.
Yeah.
I mean, all I knew about was cardboard boxes and printing plates for that, but I didn't know anything about, pre-press for comic books. I was clueless, and did I screw up? I got yelled at by a lot of editors. So, yeah, School of Hard Knocks is a good tool, but I don't recommend it. If you got somebody that can teach you the ropes, by all means, listen. Keep your mouth shut and just listen.
I would tell that and that's what I've done over the years is try to pick the brains of as many people as I can pick. And I would say to anybody out there that's learning how to draw, or actually wherever you might be, because you can always learn new stuff and new techniques, and new knowledge can be dropped no matter how long you've been drawing. So I encourage everybody to, as much as you can, ask questions, and
Absolutely.
if what they say, have thick skin, if that's the word, if someone wants to point out some errors in your art, because it's only going to make you better if you actually listen to it.
Yeah, constructive criticism is critical. You got to be able to take constructive criticism. Don't listen to somebody that walks up and says you suck. Don't take any of that to heart, because there's always going to be somebody to say it. And I hate to say this too, but I've told a lot of kids this, and I dealt with it when I was a kid, but I got to tell the truth as an editor, as a person that's been published enough to know, I always tell the kids, and I always tell it in front of their parents, And I apologize to the parents. Don't take it personally, but no matter what your parents tell you, don't
Mm-hmm.
listen, because your
Right.
parents will always love what you do. They're always going to say you're good. They're always going to say what you're doing is great. That's their job. They're supposed to help build you up. But in the
Yep.
meantime, you have to learn to make sure that other people can look at it and say, that looks good, but this needs work. And you can listen to that and do it. You have to take that information and fix the problem, even though you don't see it. And that's
Right.
the biggest problem is people take their family members' word for it and they run with it to a publisher and say, I'm good. My mom said so. Well,
Yeah.
my mom said I'm pretty too. And my wife seems to be the
Yeah.
only one to agree with that.
Yeah.
You know,
You gotta
they're
love
going to
parents.
make it true.
Yeah, honestly, you gotta
You
love
know,
parents because they will build you up the way you need. But you definitely
yeah,
need that
you've
outside.
got that young daughter over there, and you're going to love everything she does. She's going to draw, a picture of you and the family, with the sun and the trees, and you're going to think it's the best thing you ever saw because it came off your little girl's hand. You
Right.
know,
Exactly.
but if an editor saw it, you know, he's going to be brutal. He's going to be honest.
Yeah.
If he's not
Yeah.
her dad, he's not her mom. That's what they have to be ready for. They have to be ready for reality. And I hate to say it like that, but it's the truth.
No, I mean it's yeah. I mean that's absolutely the truth. I mean that's the only way you're actually going to learn too, because unless you have formal training, most of us, like you're saying, we're self-taught artists, and we learn the ropes as we go, and we stub our
Exactly.
toes, get better. But the best way you're going to get better is to show your work to somebody that's not worried about your feelings, but will give you that helpful criticism that will help. And if you actually listen, if you actually listen
Right.
to what they and implement what they say, you're going to see yourself improve in leaps and bounds over a period of time. I think that's the best way to
Exactly.
do it. Grow that skin,
Exactly.
grow that skin, and know that it's for your good as an
Right.
artist to get critiqued by somebody that knows what the hell they're talking about.
Exactly. And hopefully they know what they're talking about. Hopefully.
Yeah,
Hopefully they're not talking with their egos, because a lot of artists do tend to give their tips with their egos. You
yeah,
want good constructive criticism, not just because I do it this way, you got to do it that way. No, that's not how artwork works.
right. Yep. Well, with that, I will say, is there any you want to plug where people can find your where they can find your art on social media? I know we talked about the Kickstarter. It's coming up at the end of October, but anything you want to put out there before we end this stream, go for it.
Yeah, a lot of stuff we're working on right now. I'm working with a company called Essential Comics. I'm doing the editorial work for them. If you can go to over and check out abouttimecomics.com, check out some of their books. Got a lot of great stuff out there. I mean, not just because I did the covers for the Godsend book, but you got a lot of other great stuff out there. Absolutely, if you don't know who Lady Death is or who Brian Polito is, definitely go over and check out the Lady Death Universe page and Brian Polito's page. 25 years of history there with those characters. Actually, more than 25 years, but awesome stuff. So many great artists have contributed to Lady Death over the years, and so many more still contributing. It's awesome. Um, Definitely follow me on Facebook, and you can follow me at facebook.com/ken.hunt.104, and that's the one you can send me a friend request on. I do have a Ken Hunt art page on Facebook, but I'm so bad at social media, I don't really do much with that page, so I don't recommend you follow it. You can, but I'm horrible with it. I'm not gonna lie, I suck at social media. That's why I don't have a Twitter account anymore, because I couldn't keep up with it. I've been on
Right. Yeah.
Instagram like I think 2 or 3 weeks since I posted something, and I can't believe I've got over 1,000 followers on there. I'm surprised I have any, because I'm just horrible.
Yeah.
Um, but Facebook is my primary right now. I do need to get better at it, but I just don't have time. I'm working like 20 hours a day right now trying to get caught up on everything I've got to do. Um, like I said, we're doing this Dracula book right now, me and Chris Denmead. We've got a couple other artists on board for doing variant covers for us when the Kickstarter launches. I am going to plug that we do have, and I'm incredibly honored to be working with Tim Vigil, who did a cover for us. I wish I could share it, but I can't right now.
Understandable.
I'm talking to another artist right now, a great artist named Matt Slay. A lot of people may know him. He does some beautiful painting works out there. He's a master of watercolor work, pencil and ink. He's going to be contributing a cover to us. We have Kara Nicole, also known as the Arizona Power Girl. She's going to be doing a cosplay cover for us.
Nice.
And so, nothing wrong with a sexy female Dracula. So,
right.
That can always go a long way, But we're doing, the Dracula's a gender swap Dracula story with a twist on the original Bram Stoker's yarn. But we're giving it a kind of a modern 1930s feel with a little Victoria and some steampunk thrown in on it.
Nice.
So but it's not going to be a comic book. It's going to be a illustrated novel. So you're going to have like a page or two of text, and you're going to see a nice big splash page of artwork to go with it, like the key scenes you'll see in the books. Like the grand shot of the castle, Dracula coming down the steps. Those sort of shot. There's iconic shots you remember from the Bela Lugosi movies and the Gary Oldman movie. There's just iconic scenes that you get to go crazy with in black and white drawing, and we're just going to have a lot of fun with it. And we're going to even be offering some of the original artwork on the Kickstarter too.
Nice.
So we're going to have a lot of cool stuff going on there.
Well, I will definitely be back in that. That's for sure.
Sounds always glad to have it. But yeah, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna have some stuff out there. We're even talking about doing what we're gonna call the artist edition on the book, which is just gonna be the pinup artwork. Nice. And none of the dialogue, none of the story. It's just gonna be nothing but the pinups.
Nice.
Okay.
So, and I think we're in talks right now. I want to include everybody's covers inside that too.
Right.
I want to have Tim Vigils in there. I want to have Matt's in there. I want to have Kara's in there. And just call it the artist edition, where that book just has nothing but the artwork.
Yeah.
As a special. We're not sure if we're going to put that up as a regular goal or if we're going to do that as a stretch goal yet. We're not sure. We're still working all the stuff out, but we're going to have some great stuff on there, and we're going to try not to have to gouge anybody because of the way we want to print this book, but at the same time, we want to get it out there for everybody to get, and hopefully they'll love it. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So any horror aficionados out there, just comic fans in general, we're trying to appease them all.
Yeah, no, it sounds like it's gonna be great. I will be backing it, and I'll be sharing it and supporting it. And I encourage everybody that's watched here to check that out. Pay attention to Ken's page for when that actually starts at the end of October, and definitely support him in that manner and any other way you can. Absolutely. Ken, thank you so much for being on the show. We really appreciate it. Been a wealth of knowledge, and we will definitely have to get you back on again sometime.
Anytime.
Sometime before the end of the year, maybe. We'll see. But I think we're a while, but we'll figure it out. We'll definitely love to have you back.
You know where to find me.
Yeah, absolutely. And he is very available. I've sent him a couple messages with some questions of my own about some certain things, and he's always hit me back. It's been a really cool dude. So
I appreciate it.
Absolutely. All right, everybody. Ken, stick around just for a second before we actually end the stream, or we're going to end the stream, then just stick around for a little bit. But thank you, everybody, for joining us in the chat and joining in, asking questions. It's been great. Sean, where can we find you before we get out of here real quick?
Google me, Sean Ahrendt, on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and on the weekends, the Best Friend Show with Mark Polton and Phil McNulty, where we talk nonsense. And here with Joe. What about you, Joe?
Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, here on YouTube, Joe M. Sonntag. If you come to our YouTube channels, if you're watching us on Facebook, come to the YouTube channels, give us a like and subscribe. It really helps our show. It helps us get more attention out there and everything. So yeah, Google my name, Joe M. Sonntag. You'll be able to find me. And that's that. Have a great Friday, everybody. Friday's almost over. Have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Try not to party too hard. And artists out there, keep on drawing, because
I'm going to be working all weekend. So
There you go. Yeah, me too. Me too. So, all right, everybody, thank you for checking out the
and stuff.
And me. Guys,
All right,
have
everyone.
a good one.
Great night. Bye.
Take care.